He said it like a warning, not a request. If you're just here because you're lonely, Caleb, don't come back. Marin didn't raise her voice. She didn't look angry. That's what made it worse. She looked steady, certain, like she had already survived something harder than me. I was standing across from her after closing, the lights dim, chairs stacked, the place smelling like espresso and rain. I had just told her I liked being there, that it felt different with her. She folded her apron slowly. I have a son, she said. He doesn't need another man who leaves when things get real. That word sat between us. Leaves. I opened my mouth to defend myself, to say I wasn't like that, but the truth was I didn't know if I was. Because 3 weeks ago I was the guy sitting across from a woman who barely looked at me while I paid for dinner. And now I was here, feeling something I wasn't sure I deserved. So the real question wasn't whether she wanted me to stay. It was whether I was strong enough to. My name is Caleb Ross. I'm 26. I fix broken things for a living. Phones dropped in toilets. Laptops fried by coffee spills, game consoles that just stopped working. Most problems come down to one loose connection, one wire out of place. People are harder. I live above an old laundromat in Portland. The dryer downstairs rattles at midnight like it's chewing rocks. My couch leans to one side. My coffee maker drips slow like it's thinking about every drop before letting it go. I don't mind quiet. Quiet feels safe. Dating doesn't. The last 3 dates before Tessa were disasters. One cried about her ex for 40 minutes straight. I passed her napkins like I was her unpaid therapist. Another checked her phone so much I wondered if I was interrupting something more important. The third tried to explain crypto to me while spilling wine on the table. So when I matched with Tessa, I told myself this was the last try. If it went bad, I was done. She looked polished, confident. The kind of woman who didn't live above a laundromat. We met at this small downtown restaurant. Brick walls, low lights, jazz playing soft enough to pretend it meant something. I got there early, I always do. That's when I met Marin. Brown hair tied back, calm eyes. She asked, "Table for 1 or 2?" Like she already knew the answer mattered. 2, I said. She led me to a window seat. Rain slid down the glass in thin lines. Tessa showed up 7 minutes late. She looked exactly like her photos, sharp, clean, expensive. Her smile flicked on when she sat down, then flicked off. She placed her phone on the table face up. Notifications lit the screen before I finished saying hello. "How was your day?" I asked. "Fine." Tap, tap, tap. I tried again, told her about an older woman who brought me her late husband's water-damaged phone. I stayed up all night recovering the photos. When I handed them back, she hugged me like I'd brought him back. I thought it was a good story. "Cool," Tessa said without looking up. "There's a TikTok guy who does that. He's huge." That was it. Marin came to take our orders, calm, focused. Tessa ordered salmon, no cilantro. "Not even a speck," she said. I ordered a burger. Dinner felt like sitting next to someone on a bus who doesn't want you there. When the bill came, Tessa stood up. "I've got to go, thanks for dinner." No offer to split it, no real goodbye, just heels clicking toward the door. I sat there with half a burger and a full bill. Marin came to clear the plates. She stacked them quietly, then paused. "If it were me," she said softly, "I would have stayed." Not pity, not flirting, just a fact. Then she walked away. I went home that night telling myself it didn't matter. It was just a bad date. Happens all the time. But her words stuck. The next evening I found myself back at the restaurant. I told myself it was for the burger. It was. Marin looked up when I walked in. "Back already?" She said like she wasn't surprised. She poured coffee before I ordered. "Black, no sugar." "How'd you know?" I asked. "I pay attention," she said. That hit harder than it should have. We talked that night, not about big dreams, just small things, weird customers, broken espresso machines. Why Portland rain feels heavier than it looks. She laughed at my stories, really laughed. I didn't have to perform. Over the next week I came back again, and again. Sometimes just coffee, sometimes dinner. She'd leave small doodles on napkins, a screwdriver, a running shoe after I mentioned night jogs, tiny things. But they felt like someone noticing I existed. Then one night after closing, she asked if I wanted to go for a run, in the rain. We jogged along the river, slipped on wet roots, laughed like idiots. After a mile, we sat on a bench under a tree. She poured coffee from a thermos into the lid and handed it to me. No rush, no pressure, just quiet. That's when she told me about Leo. Her son, 8 years old, obsessed with superheroes. He doesn't need confusion, she said. I nodded. I understood more than she realized. My dad used to fix radios in the garage. When he died, he left me his old toolbox. I still use his rusty screwdriver every day. She didn't laugh when I told her that. She just said, "That's real." A few days later, I met Leo. He studied me like I was a test, then handed me a drawing, a superhero holding a giant screwdriver. "Caleb the Fixer," he said. I didn't know why that hit me so hard. Maybe because no one had given me a title like that before. That's when I started helping around the restaurant, fixing outlets, tuning the espresso grinder, small things. It felt natural, but tonight, standing in front of Marin after she warned me, everything felt heavier. "I'm not simple," she said again. "I've got history. I've got a kid. I can't afford someone halfway." Halfway, that word burned, because she was right. Part of me liked that Tessa had been impressed by expensive places, that someone polished even looked my way. Part of me still wondered if staying here meant choosing smaller. Marin saw the hesitation. "If you walk out that door unsure," she said quietly, "don't come back." No anger, just protection. For Leo, for herself, for something that could break if I wasn't steady. I looked at her hands resting on the counter. They were strong hands. Hands that carried trays and tied shoelaces and wiped tears, probably. I thought about my apartment above the laundromat, the quiet, the safety. Then I thought about Leo's drawing, Caleb the Fixer. Fixers don't walk away when something gets complicated, but they also don't pretend they can fix everything. "I'm not here because I'm lonely," I said finally. She didn't respond. She waited. And for the first time in a long time, I realized staying wasn't about romance. It was about responsibility. So I took a breath and stepped closer instead of back. But the real test wasn't tonight. It was what would happen when something tried to pull me away. And deep down, I had a feeling that test was coming. The test came sooner than I expected, and it didn't knock. It walked in wearing a black coat and a familiar smile. I was sitting at my usual table by the window, doodling on a napkin like an idiot, a crooked coffee mug with steam that looked more like smoke. The restaurant was busy that night, couples leaning close, glasses clinking, jazz floating low under the noise. I liked busy nights. They made it easier to hide how much I cared. "Caleb." My hand froze. I knew that voice. I looked up. Tessa, standing right there like she hadn't vanished 3 weeks ago, hair straight, makeup perfect, smile measured. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, already pulling the chair out across from me. I didn't invite her to sit. She sat anyway. For a second I felt that old pull, that old instinct to sit up straighter, to prove something. "You look good," she added, scanning me quickly like she was checking if I'd upgraded. "I'm fine," I said. She folded her hands on the table. "I owe you an apology." The room felt smaller. "I wasn't in a good headspace that night," she continued. "I had stuff going on. It wasn't fair to you." I nodded once, calm, but inside something shifted because I wasn't angry anymore. I just didn't feel anything. "You want to try again?" she asked. "For real this time. There's a place downtown I love, way nicer than this." Nicer than this. Her words hung in the air. Like this place wasn't enough. Like I wasn't enough before, but maybe I could be if I upgraded. Before I could respond, Marin appeared beside the table with 2 mugs. She didn't look at Tessa first. She looked at me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. It wasn't possessive, it wasn't jealous, it was checking. Tessa's eyes flicked between us. "You two know each other?" she asked. Marin's tone stayed even. "I work evenings." Nothing more, no claim, no tension, just truth. She set the mugs down and walked away. Tessa leaned forward slightly. "Friendly staff." I looked down at the napkin in my hand, the stupid drawing. Then I thought about that first night, the half-eaten burger, the silence, the way Tessa had walked out without looking back. And then I thought about Marin stacking chairs after close, asking me not to come back unless I meant it. 2 different kinds of women. 2 different kinds of weight. "You said you wanted to try again," I said slowly. Tessa smiled like she'd already won. "But I don't." Her smile paused. I'm good, I added. I'm right where I need to be. She stared at me for a full second, then laughed lightly. Your loss. Maybe it was. Once upon a time I would have thought so. She stood, coat swaying, and walked out. The bell above the door jingled just like before, only this time I didn't feel small, I felt clear. The rest of the evening moved fast. Orders, plates, laughter, the noise of other people's lives. When closing time came, the lights dimmed again. Marin locked the door and turned toward me. You handled that well, she said. You saw. I pay attention, she replied. Same words as before, different weight now. She untied her apron slowly. I meant what I said last week. I know. Leo's been through enough. I nodded. I'm not asking you to play dad, she continued. I just need to know if you're steady. Steady, it wasn't a romantic word, but it felt stronger than love. I don't want to be halfway, I said. I'm not here because she walked back in. I'm here because this feels right. Marin studied me, not for charm, not for confidence, for consistency. After a moment she reached out and touched the back of my hand, just briefly, deliberate. Then she pulled away like that was enough for now. A silent agreement. The next week shifted something. I didn't just show up anymore. I stayed after closing. I helped fix a loose hinge on the back door, rewired a flickering light in the kitchen, cleaned out the espresso grinder again. Not because I was trying to impress her, because it felt natural. One night Leo came into the restaurant before close. He had a science project in his hands and glue on his sleeve. He spotted me and grinned. Fixer. He called. I crouched down. What broke? He held up a cardboard volcano. It won't erupt. We took it to the counter. I adjusted the baking soda chamber, cleared a clog in the little plastic tube. When it finally bubbled over, he gasped like I'd performed real magic. Marin watched from across the room, not smiling big, just watching, measuring. Later that night, after Leo went upstairs to the small apartment above the restaurant, Marin and I sat at the bar. Why didn't you go with her? She asked quietly. Tessa. She nodded. I thought about it. Because she liked the idea of me, I said. You see the real one. Marin didn't respond right away. Instead, she asked something that hit deeper. What happens when this gets hard? I didn't answer quickly because she deserved more than quick answers. I stay, I said finally, even when it's inconvenient. Yes, even when it costs you something. That question hung heavier than the others, because love that costs nothing isn't tested. I swallowed. Yes. She leaned back slightly. Then for the first time she smiled without caution. Not full trust yet, but movement toward it. That night when I left, Leo was asleep upstairs. The hallway light glowed soft under the apartment door. Marin walked me to the entrance. Caleb, she said before I stepped outside. Yeah. If you ever decide you can't do this, don't fade out. I won't. I need promises that last longer than weather. That line stayed with me because Portland weather changes every hour, and I had been the kind of guy who changed direction when things felt uncomfortable. But something inside me felt different now. Not dramatic, just steady. I walked home through damp streets, up the narrow stairs above the laundromat, into the quiet apartment that didn't feel quite as safe anymore, because safe wasn't what I wanted. I wanted something that required me, and I didn't know it yet. But the real cost of staying was about to show up. The cost showed up on a Tuesday. It didn't look dramatic. It looked like an email. Subject line, store manager position, downtown location. I opened it twice just to be sure it was real. The repair chain I worked for was expanding. They wanted someone to run a bigger store in Seattle. Better pay, health benefits, a signing bonus that was more than I made in 3 months. Seattle, 2 hours north, not across the country, but far enough. I stared at the screen while the shop buzzed around me. A cracked iPad on my bench. A customer arguing about a warranty at the counter. It was everything I had told myself I wanted. My own store, authority, stability, and it came with one quiet condition: leave. That evening I didn't go straight to the restaurant. I drove past it once, then circled back. The lights were warm inside. Leo was at the counter coloring something. Marin was behind the espresso machine, steam rising around her like fog. She looked up when I walked in. Something in her face shifted. "You're late," she said gently. "Busy day." I'd a lie, just not the truth. I sat down in my usual seat. For the first time since I started coming here, I didn't feel steady. Leo hopped off his stool and came over. "Look," he said, holding up a drawing. It was a new superhero. This one had 3 people on it: a small kid with a cape, a woman with a coffee mug shield, and a guy with a giant screwdriver. I swallowed. "Who's that?" I asked, pointing at the third figure. Leo rolled his eyes like I was slow. "That's you. You live here now." What? The word hit harder than the email. Live. Marin stepped closer, wiping her hands on a towel. "Leo," she said softly. "We don't assume things." He frowned, "But he's here all the time." He wasn't wrong, I was. Marin looked at me. There it was again, that measuring look. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded, coward. "We got through the dinner rush. I helped clear tables, fixed a wobbly chair leg in the corner." I could have told her then. I didn't. After closing, Leo went upstairs. The lights dimmed. Marin poured 2 coffees and sat across from me. "You're somewhere else," she said. I took the phone out of my pocket and slid it across the table. She read the email without expression. "Seattle, more money, promotion." She placed the phone down carefully. "That's big," she said. "It's nothing official yet." "But it could be." "Yes." Silence filled the space between us. The kind that forces truth out if you wait long enough. "Do you want it?" she asked. That was the worst question, because the honest answer was complicated. "I want security," I said. "I want to stop feeling like I'm one bad month away from losing everything." Marin nodded slowly. "I get that." "I also don't want to walk away from this," I added. Her jaw tightened slightly. "This what?" "Us, Leo, the restaurant, the quiet rhythm we built." I leaned back in my chair. "They're offering more than just money," I continued. "They're offering proof that I'm moving forward." "And you think staying here means you're not?" she asked. It wasn't defensive, it was honest. I hesitated, and that hesitation said more than words. Marin looked down at her coffee. "I told you from the start," she said calmly. "I can't build something with someone who's not sure." "I am sure," I replied quickly. "About what?" I didn't answer fast enough. That was the problem. She stood up and walked toward the counter, not angry, just guarded. "I won't ask you to stay," she said. "I won't compete with a promotion." "I'm not asking you to." "Good." That one word carried weight, because it meant if I left it would be my choice. Not her pushing, not circumstances. Mine. I walked home that night with the rain hitting harder than usual, up the stairs, into my apartment, the offer letter still glowing on my screen. I imagined Seattle, a clean store, new staff, more respect. I also imagined Leo waiting by the counter asking when I was coming back. I imagined Marin telling him gently that people leave sometimes. I sat on my couch until midnight, then I opened the email again. There was a deadline, 48 hours. The next day I showed up at the restaurant earlier than usual. Leo was there doing homework. He looked up. "You coming to my game Saturday?" he asked. "What game?" "Soccer, Mom said you might." Marin shot him a look. "I said maybe," she corrected. He shrugged. "You're on the team, kind of." The team? I felt something twist in my chest. After he went upstairs to grab something, Marin stepped closer. "You don't owe us anything," she said quietly. "I know." "Don't stay because of guilt." "I wouldn't." "Then why would you stay?" That was the question. Not money, not comfort, choice. That afternoon, something small happened. A regular customer came in frustrated. His phone screen was shattered. He had photos of his daughter on there he hadn't backed up. He looked defeated. I fixed it in 20 minutes. When I handed it back, he stared at the screen like it was a miracle. "Thank you," he said quietly, not loud, not dramatic, just grateful. And I realized something. Seattle was offering me a title. This place was offering me meaning. That night after closing, I asked Marin to sit. She didn't. She stayed standing. "I'm turning it down," I said. She didn't react immediately. "Why?" she asked. "Because I don't want to build something somewhere else while walking away from something real here." Her eyes searched mine. "Be clear," she said. "Is this about me?" "Yes." "And Leo?" "Yes." "And you?" I nodded. "I'm done chasing what looks impressive," I said. "I want what feels solid." She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the doubt leaving her slowly. "Seattle might have been easier," she said. "Maybe. But easy doesn't mean better." "No." For the first time since that email arrived, I felt steady again. Marin reached for my hand, not tentative this time, firm. "You don't get to throw this in my face later," she said quietly. "No resentment. No, I could have been something else." "I won't." "You promise?" "I promise." Upstairs, Leo's footsteps echoed faintly, life moving above us, waiting. Marin looked toward the ceiling, then back at me. "Okay," she said, not dramatic, not cinematic, just okay. But in that one word, something shifted, because staying wasn't romantic anymore. It was a decision with weight, and decisions like that change the direction of a life. What I didn't know yet was that choosing to stay would soon require even more than turning down a job. The next test didn't come with an email. It came with a phone call. Marin stepped outside to take it. I could see her through the front window, pacing slowly, one arm wrapped around herself. Her shoulders stiffened. That was never a good sign. When she came back in, her face was calm. Too calm. "Leo's dad wants to see him," she said. I didn't react fast enough, because I'd almost forgotten there was a dad in the picture. "He's been out of state for months," she continued. "Says he's back, says he wants to reconnect." Reconnect, like Leo was a Wi-Fi signal. "What does Leo think?" I asked carefully. "He doesn't know yet." Marin wiped the counter twice, the same spot. "I won't keep Leo from him," she said, "but I won't let him drift in and out either." Nodded, but inside something tight. This wasn't jealousy, it was fear. Because men who drift in and out set the standard, and I didn't want to be measured against someone who kept disappearing. That night Leo found out. He tried to act cool about it. "Is he staying?" Leo asked. "I don't know," Marin replied honestly. Leo nodded like that was fine. It was. The first visit was awkward. His dad picked him up on Saturday afternoon, a tall guy, confident smile, expensive jacket. He shook my hand like I was temporary. "You the new guy?" He asked lightly. "I'm Caleb," I said. "That's what I meant." He winked at Leo like this was a competition. It wasn't, or at least it shouldn't have been. After they drove off, the restaurant felt emptier. Marin leaned against the counter. "You don't have to stay today," she said quietly. "I want to." She nodded, but her eyes were distant. Leo came back that evening quieter than usual. He didn't talk much during dinner. Afterward, he pulled out a drawing. It was different this time. 3 superheroes again, but one of them was smaller, faded. I didn't ask which one. That night when Marin tucked him in, I overheard something. "Is Caleb leaving too?" Leo asked softly. My chest tightened. "No," Marin said gently. "He's steady." Steady, that word again. I realized something then. Kids don't measure love by big promises. They measure it by who keeps showing up. The next few weeks were uneven. Leo's dad showed up twice, canceled once, showed up again. Each time Leo tried not to hope too much. Each time I stayed quiet. One evening after a canceled visit, Leo stormed into the kitchen. He said he'd come. He snapped. Marin crouched down. "I know." He said it. I stepped forward without thinking. "Hey," I said gently, "sometimes adults mess up." Leo looked at me. "You don't." The words hit like weight on my shoulders, because now I couldn't. Later that night, after Leo went upstairs, Marin and I sat at the counter. "You don't have to carry this," she said quietly. "I'm not carrying it." "You are." She looked tired. "I don't want you feeling responsible for something you didn't sign up for." "I did sign up for it," I replied. "When?" "The night you told me not to come back unless I meant it." Silence, heavy but not hostile. "I won't replace him," I continued. "I won't compete, I'll just stay." She studied me. "Staying sounds simple," she said. "It's not." "I know." A week later, Leo's dad didn't show up again. No call, no message. Leo waited by the window for 20 minutes before pretending he didn't care. I grabbed my keys. "Where you going?" Marin asked. "Soccer field," I said. "He's got practice." "He doesn't tonight." "I know." She understood immediately. We drove to the empty field anyway. Leo kicked the ball hard, over and over. I stood in goal, let him score, let him miss. Let him run it out. After a while he stopped. "Why do dads leave?" he asked. No anger, just confusion. I crouched down. "Some don't know how to stay," I said carefully. "Will you?" There it was, the question, the real one. I didn't look at Marin, I looked at Leo. "Yes." Simple, no big speech, just yes. He nodded once, like that was enough. On the drive back, Marin reached across the console and squeezed my hand. Not romantic, grateful. That night after Leo fell asleep, Marin sat beside me on the couch upstairs. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I wanted to." She leaned her head on my shoulder. For the first time there was no measuring in her eyes, no testing, just trust. "You're not his father," she whispered. "I know. But you're here." "Yes." She looked up at me. "You understand this changes things, right?" "How?" "If you ever leave now, it won't just hurt me." I didn't hesitate. "I'm not leaving." Not Seattle, not when it's hard, not when it's inconvenient, not when someone else shows up and tries to reclaim space. Marin kissed me that night, not fireworks, not dramatic, just steady. But love that's steady lasts longer than fireworks. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was fixing something broken. I felt like I was building something that could hold weight. What I didn't realize was that building something strong would soon require us to risk everything we had. We didn't plan to risk everything. It started with a notice taped to the restaurant door. Property under new management. Lease review pending. Marin stood there reading it twice, then once more, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something kinder. "They can't just do that," Leo said from behind the counter. "They can," Marin replied quietly. The building owner had sold the property. New investors, new direction, higher rent, renovations. "Coffee concept upgrade," the email later called it. Upgrade, that word again, like what we built wasn't enough. I read the numbers twice, then again. We couldn't afford it. Not without loans, not without risk. That night after Leo went upstairs, Marin sat at the counter with both hands flat against the wood. "I finally built something stable," she said softly, "and now it's shifting." I didn't say anything right away, because panic helps no one. "We can find another space," I offered. "With what money?" She wasn't angry, she was scared, and she had every right to be. The next few days felt heavier. Customers didn't know yet. Leo did. He tried not to show it, but he started drawing the old restaurant more often, over and over, like he was trying to save it on paper. One night after closing, Marin surprised me. "I want to buy it," she said. "The building." She nodded. "I know it's crazy." It was. The down payment alone was more than we had saved in 2 years. "Even if we get a loan," I said carefully, "we'd be stretched thin." "I know." "And if business dips." "I know." She looked at me straight. "I don't want to run from this." There it was again. Stay. Not because it's easy, because it matters. I thought about Seattle, the offer I'd turned down, the security I walked away from. Now here we were, facing something bigger than comfort. "I'll sell the repair van," I said. She blinked. "That's your backup." "I know." "And the tools." "Not the tools." I smiled faintly. "But the van, the extra equipment, we can cut everything that's not essential." Marin shook her head slowly. "I won't let you sacrifice your dream for mine." "It's not just yours." Silence stretched. "I'm not doing this to be noble," I added. "I'm doing it because this place isn't just coffee anymore." Upstairs, Leo's footsteps echoed faintly. This place was his homework table, his after-school safety, his sense of home. The next week blurred into paperwork, meetings with the bank, tense calls. Long nights. We were approved for a loan, barely. The condition, we had to prove community support, meaning people had to show up. The night before the final decision, Marin sat on the floor surrounded by bills. "I don't know if this is brave or stupid," she whispered. "Both," I said. She laughed weakly. The next morning, Leo taped something to the window. It was one of his drawings, 3 superheroes, but this time the building had a cape. Underneath it, he wrote in crooked letters, "We stay." Customers noticed. They started asking questions. When they heard the story, something unexpected happened. They came back more often. They tipped heavier. They posted online. A small article ran in the local paper. "Neighborhood cafe fights to stay open." I watched regulars sign a petition to show support. Old men who read books in the corner, college students who studied during finals, parents with strollers. We weren't just fighting for a business. We were fighting for a place that felt steady in a city that kept changing. The bank meeting was quiet. Marin held my hand under the table. The manager looked over the numbers, the petition, the article, the projected revenue. "You've built something people care about," he said finally. "Yes," Marin replied. He nodded once. "We'll move forward." It wasn't dramatic. No applause, just a signature. But when we stepped outside, Marin let out a breath like she'd been holding it for months. Leo ran toward us from the sidewalk bench where he'd been waiting with her mom. "Did we stay?" he asked. Marin crouched down. "We stay," she confirmed. He threw his arms around her, then around me, tight. That night we closed the restaurant as owners, not renters, owners. We stood in the center of the room, dust still floating in the warm light. No big speech, no champagne, just quiet. "I almost lost this once," Marin said softly. "You didn't." "I would have." She looked at me. "You didn't leave." I shook my head. "Some things don't get fixed," I said. "They get built." She smiled. Months later, we added something new to the wall. Next to Leo's first superhero drawing, a framed photo of the 3 of us holding the keys to the building. Underneath it, Marin wrote, "Some promises don't fade, they show up. I still live above the laundromat for now, but it doesn't feel permanent anymore. Because I don't measure my life by square footage. I measure it by who waits for me at the end of the day." Sometimes Leo still asks, "You staying?" And I always give the same answer. Yes, because staying isn't about comfort. It's about choosing the same people again tomorrow and the day after that. And when something tries to pull you away, you don't drift. You don't upgrade, you stay. And that changes everything.